Welcome back to Hannity. So earlier today, Florida prosecutors announced that they will not pursue a misdemeanor battery charge against Donald Trump's campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, for allegedly grabbing reporter Michelle Fields' arm. Tonight, newly released security video just before the incident in question shows a Secret Service agent telling Fields to leave the area, which she does, but after about 90 seconds, Fields then returns to the same spot to try and ask Mr. Trump a few questions. Some are calling this video, quote, a smoking gun. Fox did reach out to Michelle Fields for a comment. She declined to give a statement. And earlier tonight, I stopped by the New York State Republican Gala and interviewed Donald Trump's campaign manager. His first interview, Corey Lewandowski. Here's the interview. Joining us now, right here on the stage, is campaign manager for Donald Trump. Corey Lewandowski is with us. Corey, good to see you. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, Sean. It's great to be here.
Big relief for you today. Prosecutors in Jupiter decided they're not moving forward with any charges as it related to the Michelle Fields incident. I wanted to give you a chance to respond and give your take.
Well, first let me say how much I am thankful for Mr. Trump and his loyalty in this very, very difficult time. You know, many other candidates, all of the other candidates in the race asked for me to be fired and said I should have my chance for my day in court, and what we saw today was that they looked at the evidence and decided there was no way that they could prosecute this case and move forward. So first and foremost, I want to thank Mr. Trump. Secondly, I want to thank my family and my colleagues who stood by me in this very difficult time. This is a huge distraction for the campaign, and it should never have been. If Michelle Fields wanted to have a conversation, we could have had a conversation privately and not made this the story that it is today. And I'm sorry that this has become the story that it is today. So I'm glad it's behind us. I'm glad there's no charges moving forward, and I'm ready to double my effort on this campaign to make sure Mr. Trump is elected.
Are you a little annoyed, angry, upset that they even brought it up in the first place, because they had the video at the time that they so-called charged you or were going forward with this?
Well, the thing is, the video came from Mr. Trump, and if he didn't have the survey equipment, you know, in the ceiling that night, this could be completely different. So I'm thankful that he invested the money necessary to get that video and turn it over to the police at his own request, because he knew that that video would exonerate me, and I'm very thankful that he made the investment to do that.
You know, things are so heated in politics sometimes, but I tried to look at this as objectively as possible. I had known Michelle Fields. She'd been on this show, you know that, for many, many years. And I go back to her original statement. Someone grabbed me tightly by the arm, yanked me down. I almost fell to the ground, jolted backwards. That's just not on the tape. I looked again and again and again, and I couldn't understand that it got the amount of media attention that it actually got. When you looked at the tape, did you have a sense of relief?
Well, I did, and that's why Mr. Trump released that tape, because we saw that what she was saying was not factually accurate to what the tape was showing. So it's important that that was there. And I think what we saw was, you know, you have an individual who remembers an incident very differently than the way I remember it. I don't remember it at all, candidly, and my entire interaction with her was on that videotape. I've never met her before. I'd never spoken to her afterwards. So my sum total of that relationship with her was about 3 seconds long. And I know that sounds like a long time, but in a 3-second incident that I don't recall because it wasn't very memorable, this has really taken over a big piece of my life, and I'm glad it's behind us.
I know there's the press at the time, and I've been in those situations a lot, either as the person that is speaking or being around people in a little gaggle like that, scrum. But what's interesting to me is you're saying you never met her before, you never talked to her before, and they tried to make a big deal over the fact that, well, maybe he didn't yank her to the ground, but he said he didn't touch her. And the tape shows that he might have touched her. And I looked at that point, I said, is that where we've gotten to in this campaign?
Well, it's not just the campaign, it's this notion of politically correctness. Everything is politically correct nowadays. You know, and I think what people have to remember when they take a look back is, what are we doing now? Everything is so politically correct. You know, when I walked by Michelle Fields that night, I said, excuse me, thank you, because I was trying to walk between her and Mr. Trump. And that's what polite people do, say excuse me and thank you. And I didn't remember anything more than that. And I didn't even know anything about it until I looked at her Twitter feed hours later when I was being accused of being a thug. And so, look, I would have resolved this privately if that's what needed to be done, but I never had that contact. To this day, I've never spoken to Michelle Fields.
So there was never any contact. The only time you knew about this was reading Twitter and her Twitter feed, and that was the only contact experience that you knew that something had happened, and you didn't even remember the incident.
And it wasn't even her Twitter feed. It was her boyfriend's Twitter feed who called me a thug. Yeah. Said, you know, hey, this is what Donald Trump surrounds himself with, thugs. I didn't even know what they were talking about. You know, after that, you know, occurred, I was at the club there for hours, and there was many media there. And at no time did anyone come up to me and say, hey, this incident just occurred. It wasn't until days later where something happened. So I'm glad it's done.
Some have speculated there might be some type of defamation lawsuit after. Your thoughts on that?
Look, I don't know. People can do whatever they want to do. I think that I'm happy that the criminal case is over. I'm glad that the prosecutors in Palm Beach County looked at this and said there wasn't enough evidence to move forward and get a prosecution. So I'm very pleased with that. And I'm glad to put the whole thing behind it for not just the campaign, but also my family.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the campaign. There's been a lot of talk about delegates, and especially in the last couple of weeks, they had the convention in Colorado. Ted Cruz got all 34 delegates there. And the rules that are different in every state. For example, some are proportional, some are winner take all. You have some caucus, some primary, now some convention where people don't get to go to the polls. To me, it's very confusing. I think to a lot of voters it's very confusing. But the big question for your campaign is, do you think you can get to 1237 by June 7th?
We're going to get to 1237 by the last day that this election is going to take place. But let me tell you what the problem is. In Colorado, the people of Colorado weren't given the opportunity to vote. And I understand those are the rules of the party, but that's not what our country's about. People should have been given that opportunity. And Donald Trump, what he's pointed out is very, very clear about this, is let people go to the ballot and make their own decision. And what we see in states where the process is open and people have the opportunity to come out, Donald Trump is drawing massive crowds out. Big people who've never turned out before are coming out and saying, we want to support Donald Trump. And those are the people that have been disengaged with the political process. The people in Colorado, I understand what the rules are. They've been shut out of the system. They should have been given the opportunity to go and vote. And
you have treated it as a campaign differently. In other words, gone out there, campaigned more. If you thought you had more of an opportunity, did you think the deck was stacked before you even went in?
Well, the deck is clearly stacked in situations like that. And what we would favor, which I think the American people want, is the opportunity to walk into the ballot box and decide to cast a vote for who they want. Whether that's Donald Trump or John Kasich or somebody else, they should have their privilege to go in there and cast their ballot and let that ballot count.
You know, because this is a national party, I think you do raise good points that I think need to be considered post-2016. While it's a national party, you want states to have choices and opportunities. They can have a choice. Do they want a caucus or do they want a primary? Do they want proportional distribution or do they want winner-take-all? I don't think any state, though, should have unbound delegates. At that point, it becomes confusing, and they're not representing at that point the people, right?
Well, it's not just that. In some of these states, the rules are so complex that in order to become a delegate, you had to start running 18 months ago before the candidate for president even started running. That's not right. That's why people are fed up with the GOP establishment and the Washington elites that are telling people, we're going to decide what's best for you. We're going to pick who that nominee is going to be. That's not what has happened. Donald Trump has gotten millions more votes than his next closest competitor. Leads the delegate race by hundreds over his next closest competitor. And the establishment wants to come in and say, no, no, we're going to dictate who's going to be the next nominee. That's not right, and that is exactly what is wrong with the current system.
Let's talk about if you fall short after June 7th of 1237. There's still a lot of unbound delegates. Randy Evans, pretty smart guy, he said that he thinks the magic number is really 1,100 because any campaign from that point forward would be able to get the extra 137 delegates. Do you agree with that analysis, or do you think you have to get to 1237, or do you think that the establishment will try to take it away from Mr. Trump?
Look, I think our goal is to get 1,237 or more going into that convention. Our goal, obviously, is to do that through the existing rules of the process right now. So when California votes and New Jersey votes on that last day, we want to walk out of there with more than 1,237 delegates. If there is a discrepancy, which I don't think there will be, because I think Donald Trump is going to get those delegates, and he's going to be the Republican nominee. He's going to be the President of the United States. Donald Trump is the greatest deal maker in the history of our country. And if he's 5 votes short or 10 votes short, he will know how to go out and get those and bring people in, because it's about unifying the party at that point. And that's what's the most important thing. If the goal is truly to put a Republican back in the White House, which I think is the goal of everyone in the Republican Party, then we should unify behind Donald Trump and make that the priority right now.
Last question back to Michelle Fields. Would you have a sit-down with her? Would you talk to her? Would you try and break bread and put this aside?
Look, I'm open to anything, but I can tell you how difficult this has been on my family. I've got 4 young kids. I've got a wife who lives in New Hampshire who's been, living this whole thing every day, not understanding what's going on, reading the media stories, which have been wholly inaccurate because they've wanted to make this a story that really doesn't exist. So it's tough personally. But look, I'm also a Catholic and a religious person, and I think people deserve forgiveness who ask for it, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. What I'm saying is, look, life is a long thing. And I don't need enemies. I need friends. Just like Donald Trump, we're going to bring everyone together. I'm going to make our party bigger and better and stronger. And people who haven't been involved before are going to be involved now. And that's how we're going to be successful moving forward.
Corey Lewandowski, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Appreciate it.